Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. The brand new video for you guys today, and welcome to my channel. Hope you all feel good and smelling good as I have another reaction video for you guys today. I haven't done a reaction video in a while. This video is by Endymion TV. Baldur's Gate 3 proves modern gaming is getting worse. Plus, Western developers attack Larian Studios. We're going to react to that video. But before you do any of that, just know, in the description box below, there is a link tree that should get you to all of my channels. My main channel, where I upload every single day, including this month, we're uploading our Baldur's Gate 3 Let's Play every single day, sometimes 2 videos a day. So I don't upload a lot here because I only upload here when I have a reaction to do, or when I feel like I'm doing a reaction. So if main channel stuff is done, then I'm over here. I also got my sports channel, some other channels, and my Twitch channel, where I stream every Monday through Thursday. Link box below as well when it comes to that. Even without the link tree, you can find that link too. When it comes to reaction those, by the way, anyone who's a subscriber on Twitch or someone who does a little bit of a donation or Patreon can recommend a reaction here on this channel. So let's get the intro out the way and get right into today's reaction video. And yes, I'm standing up because I'm a content creator. Sometimes we sit down way too much, and so we're gonna do this reaction standing. So, as always, when it comes to my reaction videos, every single person who react to their video will be linked in the response box below. Go to their channel, show them some love, let them know that you appreciate their video, that you watch their video, and if you like their content, subscribe to them as well. Let's get into the reaction.
What's up everyone, it's Endymion, and as you're probably aware, the hotly anticipated Baldur's Gate 3 has finally come out on PC, with the console versions releasing in September for us peasants such as myself. The game has been a massive success story for Larian Studios, who has had one hell of a comeback the past decade with the Divinity Original Sin games, which I beat both of them, and yeah, I highly recommend them. Players are praising Baldur's Gate 3 due to its
I also recommend those games. Both Divinity Original Sin and Divinity 2 are very, very good games. If you're interested in Baldur's Gate 3 and you don't have it yet because it's not on PC, not on PlayStation or Xbox yet, you can play Divinity, play those games while you're waiting for Baldur's Gate 3 to come out. And in general, if you're on PC and you're interested in Baldur's Gate 3 and you want to make sure you're actually into this style of game, buy Divinity Original Sin Original Sin 2. They're a similar kind of style as Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be, so you can get a decent experience on what the game would be like.
breadth of content, incredible branching paths of story, and character customization, to name just a few of the highlights of this landmark title. And its Metacritic and user score are not only surprising, but insanely weird, with this game being one of the only big releases in years that I can think of anyway that has gotten this glowing of a reception. In a lot of ways, Baldur's Gate 3's success is to CRPGs what Elden Ring was to action open world RPGs. Sadly, both Elden Ring and BD3 have a striking similarity amongst them as well. And it's not that they're both incredibly well made, offer loads of options, and have zero microtransactions, but that Baldur's Gate 3, like Elden Ring before it, over-delivers on its promise, and this has worried and pissed off many developers at other games.
Now we're pausing again. I do have a video on my main channel that goes into a deep conversation about Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate 3 and how developers are reacting to both those games, and this weird state that we're in where publicly on Twitter, developers are basically basically shitting on other games that tend to be actual complete good experiences instead of being the drip-fed content microtransactions that we see in most AAA games.
Studios. When Elden Ring released, we had Horizon Zero Dawn and Ubisoft employees complaining they couldn't understand why fans were so crazy about Elden Ring. Elden Ring was attacked because it was full of content and had more gameplay options than anything else on the market. It was also attacked because it didn't hold players' hands and gave more content than Western devs were used to delivering. Basically, they hated Elden Ring because it was a true video game that cared about its consumers, which is something sadly a ton of Western games these days regretfully just can't understand. And like that game, Baldur's Gate 3 is in similar hot water amongst the creative types. According to GameWorldObserver.com with their article titled, "Why Devs Consider Baldur's Gate 3 Anomaly Not New Standard for RPG Genre, It's Rockstar Level Nonsense for Scope." A lot of this discourse started where an indie game developer named Xavier Nelson Jr. tweeted that BG3's success will only harm the future releases of other games due to its quality. He said things such as, "Like a lot of people, I'm deeply excited about what the lovely folks at Larian accomplished with Baldur's Gate 3. but I want to gently, preemptively push back against players taking that excitement and using it to apply criticism or a raise standard to RPGs going forward. This is not a new baseline for RPGs, this is an anomaly. Trying to do the same thing in the same way, especially without the same advantages, could kill an entire group of studios. So please celebrate the achievement represented by Baldur's Gate 3. It looks like a massive amount of effort is about to pay off in a big way for one of the brightest voices in the medium. But if you shout that every RPG should be like this going forward, you have no excuse. You've not just missed the point, you've created the expectations and conditions to ensure your favorite creators may never be able to give you the thing you love ever again.
Before he continues, one thing that I want to point out when it comes to like that tweet in particular, that's a tweet by an indie developer. Lyric Seals is technically an indie developer, so it's basically an indie developer saying, hey, not all indie studios can do that. And it's true. Lyric Studios is technically indie, but they're about the same size as AAA studios. Like they have 400 employees in comparison to say 343 means Halo, they have 450. So Halo has 50 more developers than Lyric Studios does. But because Larian doesn't have a publisher, they're not as close to any Microsoft or Sony. They're their own company. They're independent. They are considered an indie studio, even though by scope and by size and by the size of their games, they're not actually indie in the sense of what we term indie as. This tweet is by an indie developer who's part of those small studios. And he's basically just saying, hey, small studios where it's like 30-40 people and they can't make that kind of game, and he's hoping that no one thinks that other indie studios can deliver what this independent studio North Larian has done. And it's true, you can't assume that every independent studio has the kind of funding and backing that Larian has from shareholders and things like that, or whoever's like funding Larian as a company can do those kind of things, because they can't. So it's a true statement, and that got taken out of context by like a lot of people and other developers who use it to push their own narratives. And also, I would just say that guy should also give gamers the benefit of the doubt. Gamers don't assume that indie developers can make this kind of game.
Then you have other game devs like James Berg, who also said things about Baldur's Gate 3. I would not be surprised if this was more dev effort than the next 2 or 3 games in the genre combined. It's Rockstar level nonsense for scope. Only a few studio groups could even try this. I cannot wait to play, but this kind of effort likely won't be replicated this decade. While I understand BG3's success and scope would make an indie studio shudder, since there's no way they can achieve that level of sheer content, I think people like Xalavier and James are also kind of what's wrong with Western gaming lately as well.
Also important to point out, from my understanding, BG3 was in development for 7 years. So it's not like they just made this game in 2 years and we got this game that's been in development for 7 years. The average video game is in development for like 3 to 4 years on average. So this game was in development way longer than that, and it also had an early access where they allowed players to play the game. They can iron out bugs as it goes on, which is why it's a game that released without so many issues, because they had early access that was early access was like 3 years long, I think. So 3 years of early access is 3 years of polishing and getting players already in the game to test out the servers, test out anything they need to test out when it comes to having players playing the game.
I don't need to tell you that currently right now, there's a lot of garbage coming out of Western studios. There's far too many live service games with microtransactions, battle passes, or games launching that barely even work and constantly crash. Let's look at Star Wars Jedi Survivor. When that released on PC, the game was a mess. And it had the backing of a massive game company and Disney, and it was based on one of the largest IPs in the world. Yet even then, PC players were given a broken game and expected to pay full price to play it anyway. I think we can all agree that when it comes to modern gaming, for the most part, when you buy a game on release, there's a really good chance you're basically buying a game to be a beta tester. Of course, there are some games that release that both work well and have the polish that players expect for the money that they spend. Final Fantasy XVI is a great example of this, alongside Elden Ring and BG3. These games all actually deliver on what they promise, and in my opinion, they also justify their price tags. But there's also this weird mantra when it comes to modern video games, which is that it seems like game devs purposely try to not over-deliver, because they don't want to give more content or polish than they think that they need to. I think the real reason why devs have unanimously agreed on this bizarre don't over-deliver tactic is because it creates a baseline to give thousands of devs room to release games of varying quality that either work fine or not at
Jump in right here because again, I want to follow you guys to my main channel. My main channel, I did a video about Destiny. It's a very long video, but within that video, I do a reaction to Bungie's Destiny general manager, who's talking to a room full of developers at JTC about why Bungie does what they do and what their model is for developing a video game. If you watch that video, even if you just watch the video of himself and not my own video, you will see why modern games are shifting to this way. Destiny makes a lot of money and has a very high player retention. A lot of developers are looking at Destiny as basically the poster child of successful live service, which is why Sony bought Bungie. When Sony bought Bungie, they literally said they want them to teach them how to make a live service game and to make live service games for PlayStation. So Bungie is being viewed as the poster child. You should be copying and following when it comes to live service. So we're seeing all these games trying to copy the Destiny formula. Gotham Knights was trying to copy the Destiny formula. Outriders trying to copy the Destiny formula. The new Suicide Squad Kill Justice League trying to copy that Destiny formula. Games are trying to copy Destiny and Fortnite and Apex when it comes to what the scope is, and all those games are failing because they're not capturing what those games necessarily capture for their audience. Destiny had going forward being Bungie. It was the Halo developers. So people jumped into Destiny because of that. It was Halo developers, and they wanted to play anything the Halo developers put out. And the gameplay of Destiny was so good in Destiny 1, where players got into it and they stuck with it, and they just kept playing. And because of sunk cost fallacy, they started playing Destiny 2, more sunk cost fallacy, they never left. And it comes with like Fortnite, and it comes to Apex. You start putting money into a video game as a consumer, you won't leave that game. Which is also why these Western studios are copying that formula, because like, okay, if we do the exact same thing, they'll buy microtransactions in our game, they'll buy our battle passes, and they won't leave.
all at release, and this is just how things are apparently. But I personally believe that this mentality is encouraged because it allows game studios to deliver less content while still reaping the rewards. A great example of this actually is the whole Destiny 2 controversy right now. In case you don't know about that, Bungie released a state of the game where they basically confirmed that they were all but dropping core game modes, and would no longer be adding new armor sets to the game every season because of low adoption rates, according to Bungie. But fans quickly pointed out that the armor that has low adoption rates usually looks like ass, since all the actual good sets and weapon skins are all placed behind Eververse, which is Destiny 2's microtransaction store. Bungie also said that making games is hard and players should be more realistic with their expectations. They also stated during a games developer conference that over-delivering can hurt your game and set patterns that make future content unable to deliver. Bungie even believes previous releases like the Witch Queen expansion to be an example of over-delivering. Yet players loved that expansion because it not only added new game mechanics.
Let's mention that Destiny video. Destiny's most beloved expansions by the community are the ones where they actually put effort in and delivered on expectation. The Taken King was a big turning point for Destiny as a game, because before Taken King, Destiny fans loved the gameplay but hated the story because the story sucked. Taken King came out, very good story, everyone loved it. Then the game went through another drought. People kind of liked the Siva stuff, and not that much. People kind of like Rise of Iron, some people didn't. And then there was again just more content drought in terms of the game sucking. Destiny 2, same thing, all the expansions sucked. Curse of Osiris, Warmind, all that was terrible. Witch Queen comes out and it's amazing, and then Bungie's like, okay, that took a lot of effort, let's not do that again. So everything after Witch Queen has sucked.
It had a good raid and an excellent story. It actually felt worth the money that you spent on it. Then you fast forward to this year's release with Lightfall, and the community's nuclear reaction to it was the opposite of Witch Queen. Lightfall felt pointless, rushed, had a terrible story and campaign, and besides a new subclass, It's largely considered a blight on Destiny's history. But to Bungie, Lightfall falls in line with what fans should expect. But the problem here is that Lightfall has less content than Witch Queen, but it was also sold for a higher price than Witch Queen as well. Meaning Bungie effectively gave their player base less content of a much lower quality and made more money in the end. It's a win for the studio financially, but Bungie instead paid the price with a loss of credibility, player satisfaction, and now with this state of the game nonsense, the community's faith in Bungie is at an all-time low now. But in terms of what devs like Xalavier and James said previously, what Bungie did by under-delivering is seen as good in their eyes, yet it's opposite for the paying customer. It honestly seems like consumers and devs are at a crossroads where both parties have wildly different expectations of the other. And with Baldur's Gate 3's massive release with its over-delivering and sheer amount of content and quality, it's the exact opposite of Destiny's Lightfall. Fans are happy to buy BG3 because it respects their time and money and doesn't constantly ask players to buy nonsense like weapon skins or armor constantly. But to devs, they hate it because it doesn't fit into this new age model of what games should be. I also find it interesting that when Destiny releases a crap expansion, a lot of these devs are silent. But whenever a game actually meets audience expectations like Elden Ring or BG3, they unanimously assemble to tear these games down. The simple truth is that devs don't want Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate 3 to become the norm because they don't want the norm to become over-delivering. But the truth is that today's over-delivering was 10 or 20 years ago's industry standard. It's likely why we haven't seen a new Elder Scrolls in forever, because a game like Skyrim, if it were released today as a brand new game, in terms of scope, content, story, and so on, these same devs would attack it because it would be over-delivering in their words. Other devs like Spellforces 3's Rebecca Harwick said, "This whole thread, you can't be appalled about how much big games cost to make, and make those lavish productions the standard by which all games are judged. I hope Baldur's Gate 3 is a generous once-in-lifetime RPG. I hope no one expects a 10, 20, 40 person team to make one." But I think these devs are taking the wrong lessons from
no one's expecting a small studio to be able to make a game like Elder Scrolls Skyrim or Final Fantasy 16 or Baldur's Gate 3 or Elden Ring. No one's expecting a small studio to do that. They're expecting big studios, Ubisoft, EA, Microsoft, Sony, Square Enix, Capcom. They're expecting people like that to be able to make these kind of games and make games that aren't broken, games that don't have, drip-fed content, games that don't have a cash shop and things like that. You mentioned that like Elder Scrolls Skyrim came out, 20-something years ago. It's really been 20 years. So I don't. It can't be. It's been like maybe 13 years. So 10 years ago, Skyrim came out, something like that. These kind of games were normal. Seeing games like Baldur's Gate 3 wasn't special because it was a normal thing. They were overplayed. Most RPGs were complete experiences without microtransactions, other than the DLCs and expansions. The whole horse armor thing when it comes to Oblivion. But generally, when it came to single player games, they were just single player games. You didn't see microtransactions in anything other than potentially like mostly sport games and shooters when it came to like map packs and stuff like that. So the interesting now is to like not have what was standard 10 years ago, which is weird because it's like if you make good games, people give you money. Games are not successful for a reason. There's when it comes to like say Suicide Squad, Kills of Justice League, or any game that tries to copy the Destiny formula, they don't make as much money as games like Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate, because Gate and Elden Ring are good games. Because they're good games, they get flooded with money and revenue. You can't try to like strike rich with freaking live service. Make a good video game and people will buy it.
Baldur's Gate and Elden Ring. We understand that not every game will be utterly massive like the lands between. But I think more so than anything, players want games to have quality be the utmost importance to devs. Elden Ring alone has more combat and weapon options than multiple AAA games combined. Baldur's Gate 3 has more cutscenes and replayability than the greatest of roguelikes. They don't want these games to become the norm, because if they do, it'll expose their games for being shitty and greedy, and that's what this is all about. They don't want players to expect actual quality games because it means these devs have to do more than the bare minimum when it comes to making them. And the Rockstar level nonsense line is also tone deaf, since yet again, devs are hating on games that are far more profitable and quality made than their own. Sure, Grand Theft Auto 5 is a cash cow full of microtransactions, but at least at its core, I think people will agree that it's a quality product. It looks great, it has a huge world with tons of content, and the physics and everything within it work both to great and hilarious effect. They're tearing down Baldur's Gate 3 because it proves that games can still be great and profitable. But BG3 is also an anomaly in today's world because today's games are largely unfinished, unplayable messes at release. Or they underdeliver on purpose while charging more like Destiny does. And it seems like Larian is already in the crosshairs of the mega corpos since Larian CEO Sven Vick confirms that Microsoft has approached them about buying the entire company. But Sven assures fans Larian will stay independent, saying, "I'm getting older, but I'm certainly not done yet. The strength of this company is that I'm very invested in the gameplay, and I also make the ultimate decisions. We can do things in service of the games we're making." With Sven clarifying that his problem with mega corpos is that profit is always more important than gameplay or quality, and that Baldur's Gate 3's reception is proof that Larian cares about its players and their reputation far more than just milking them for eternity. And really, how many game devs these days can you really say have that same mentality? Chasing the bag seems to be all these AAA studios do these days. Besides Bungie milking their player base and then crying saying making games is too hard, you have BioWare, who used to be like Larian until they stopped making games like Mass Effect, and decided it was time for the studio to make a live service game, which is how Anthem came to be. This cultural and tonal shift in modern gaming has honestly ruined a lot of these companies.
Yeah, Anthem was another game that tried to chase Destiny. Another game that wanted to copy Bungie and have that same kind of live service looter shooter mentality that Destiny has, and it failed. I said in my video about Destiny, every game that tries to copy Destiny has failed. There has not been a single game that copies Destiny that has had success at all. And there's a reason for that. Outriders failed. Anthem failed. They had to delay Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League because how much bad feedback that it got. Gotham Knights failed. Games that try to copy the looter shooter style of Destiny tend to fail. The only thing you can say is as like a potential success is Warframe. Maybe. You could say Warframe but Warframe doesn't necessarily try to. It's comparable in the fact that it's a looter shooter MMO light, but it's not comparable in the sense of trying to copy Destiny because it doesn't try to copy Destiny at all. Nothing about Warframe is similar to Destiny and Destiny's formula, other than the fact that they're both looter shooters.
I wouldn't be surprised if the original Mass Effect trilogy, by today's standards, is also over-delivering in modern game devs' eyes as well. It seems like every great game that actually tries to be a fun game first is more a problem than the tsunami of free-to-play nonsense out there. They simply do not want quality and sheer quantity of content to be the norm. They want to gaslight people and make them feel sorry for the devs while also charging insane prices for games that secretly make every paying customer into a beta tester. To be real with you, it's just so tiring. Larian warms my heart since when you look at whether Baldur's Gate 3 has any microtransactions, on the official store it says, "There are no in-game purchases in our game. We believe in providing a complete and immersive gaming experience without the need for additional purchases. Enjoy the game to its fullest without any additional costs or microtransactions." Like, what the hell, right? This should be the standard going forward, but it isn't. It's insane that in 2023 there's a big budget AAA RPG game that not only respects its players but also their wallets. This game honestly doesn't feel real, so it's no wonder why other devs hate it. And it's incredibly eye-opening when you place BG3 up against other huge RPGs this year like Diablo 4, which not only has a premium battle pass but also an entire online store full of sets that cost as much as entire video games. Diablo 4 also got into trouble when the first season of that game went live because the devs, on purpose, placed the button to buy their premium battle pass directly where players access the map, with the pass being bought without any confirmation. So likely thousands of players of Diablo 4 mistakenly bought the battle pass by accident, and no, Blizzard will not refund those who did it. Don't you just love these modern gaming companies? And the disrespect of modern gaming doesn't even end there, since Red Dead Redemption just got an official release on Switch and PS4. The game is $50 American at launch, and oh, by the way, this is a re-release. That's all it is, a re-release. This version of Red Dead is the exact same game back on the Xbox 360 and PS3. There's no visual enhancements, no 60 FPS, or added bells and whistles. Rockstar literally just released the same game as it was over 10 years ago for almost the same price as Baldur's Gate 3 at launch. So when I say that these companies and their studios don't value their customers, I truly do mean it. They do not care about you at all. You are just a consumer born to pay for stuff until you die in their eyes. And that is why Baldur's Gate 3 is so hated by these modern game developers. Because it could have easily been designed to fleece its audience with predatory microtransactions or pay-to-win nonsense. And the user reviews speak for themselves. I mean, come on, just read any one of these for confirmation. This one especially, which says Larian and From Software are the only two studios that I trust. I agree with Raiden here as well. There's not many devs I would say I openly trust anymore when it comes to them delivering quality products. And the list of studios gets smaller every year, the more predatory and greedy they become. So if you're playing Baldur's Gate 3, I hope you enjoy it. I hope people continue to reward and play games that actually genuinely are designed to be the best experience possible. And if you want another game I think that falls in line with games like Baldur's Gate 3 or Elden Ring in terms of quality and content, maybe give Chained Echoes a look sometime. It's cheap and has more content and love put into it than most AAA RPGs, I'm not even kidding. But these games should not be anomalies but the standard, so please keep playing, push back, and let these studios know their lazy attempts at normalizing shit games will not stand. Vote with your wallet.
That's a good video from Endymion TV. As always, go to his video. Link be from box below. It'll be the first link. You'll see the description. It'll be like just be the description of what this video is about. It'll be his link, my Twitch link, and then my link. His link will be the first link in the description box below. Go there, like the video, watch the video, and if you enjoy his content enough, subscribe to him as well. I'm gonna leave a like. One of the things I do want to say though is I don't have a standing desk, so that's why this isn't like lifted more towards my face. I don't have a standing desk. But I do want to say when it comes to like that last bit about developers you can trust, I do think there's more developers to trust than just those two. But I think those developers are developers who were already trusted. Then people lost their trust, and now they're trying to gain it back. Like Bioware. Bioware to me is a developer you can trust. Like, they went through the whole thing with Anthem. I think Anthem was meant to be a different game. There was someone who left Bioware who, they spoke about it. They said that Anthem had a different identity, had a different goal for Anthem that they were going to do, but EA stepped in and kind of pushed it towards being this Destiny copycat style game. So I definitely think Bioware can still be Bioware of old. We'll probably see that when it comes to Dragon Age 4. Also see that when it comes to Mass Effect 4 as well. But that depends on when those games come out, because both of those games are not going to come out with another, especially when it comes to like Mass Effect. Mass Effect is not coming out maybe until like 2028. If we're lucky, maybe 2027. Whereas like Dragon Age 4 might be like next year, 2026. I'd also say CD Projekt Red is a developer you can trust. Yes, Cyberpunk had the release that it had, but I think that release is going to push them back into being the CD Projekt Red that we know of when it comes to the first 3 Witcher games. So yeah, I definitely do think that there's developers that we can trust. But anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Do all the things, y'all. Grab them likes, like the video, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you guys in the next reaction video. I've been your boy, Anubis, the Gamer Archer. I'll see you when I see you. Y'all stay safe, out here. Deuces.